Josh McCuistion, Sooner Scoop, dominant source for Oklahoma football and recruiting. He joins us on 365 Sports with Paul, Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak. Josh, thanks for your time. Obviously, things have to go better than they did in year one. You have to replenish the roster, a lot of changeover. Where do you really, what are the realistic expectations? Because Oklahoma's not going to just kind of go through a 5-7, 7-5 type rebuild, are they?
Now, you understand you're talking about Oklahoma. Realistic expectations, that's not a thing.
No.
But,
yeah.
but no, I think I do think last year was something of a mental reset for OU fans. Kind of a, okay, it's not – I think they got so accustomed to things being so easy, and a berth into the Big 12 championship game was just a foregone conclusion. That's the way it's going to go every year, and I think they really had to face that this is harder than it was looking at times. And what I do think is interesting is kind of for Oklahoma to go where Oklahoma fans want it to go, which is beyond the Big 12 championship, beyond, a conference championship of any kind, they were going to have to change the way they were doing things. And so I think there's some of last year that was just it almost had to happen at some point. They were going to have to go through some growing pains. Now, last year with some of the ugly losses, I mean, Baylor among them, where, Oklahoma just never could get the stop it needed to kind of get back in that game. I think that's going to be the interesting thing to watch this year. As far as expectation, I mean, you look at this schedule, and if OU hadn't have gone 6-7 last year, you're looking at that schedule thinking this, a team like OU and the success they've had, that's a playoff schedule. That's a team you should go 11-1, 12-0 against that schedule. But with what happened last year, there's always this, I don't know, you just don't know what to expect from this team right now.
Josh, how active do you expect them? I know active. They're very active. How successful do you expect them to be in the portal here in this next couple weeks?
I think you're going to see them make some moves. There's definitely a lot of talk of Brennan Thompson, the receiver that left Texas. I know there's a lot of connection with he and Emmett Jones being a West Texas guy with Emmett and his time at Texas Tech. I think there is a lot there. We're kind of expecting maybe to hear something this weekend. So that's a starting point, and that's one of the positions where, again, people have gotten so used to, Oklahoma's got a great wide receiver room. They just kind of assume it. It really had fallen off over the last couple of years. I mean, last year Marvin Mims was their one consistent playmaker on the outside, and you lose him, and you lose some guys, some experience in the portal, and Theo Weiss going to Missouri. So I think you're going to see some action there. It wouldn't shock me at tight end, where Oklahoma currently has one scholarship tight end going through spring practice right now. They have two others, but they're both injured. They brought in a guy, Blake Smith from Texas A&M. He hasn't been able to go this spring. So they had to convert a defensive lineman into a tight end for just the sake of practice. They've had a guy they took from a Division II basketball program that wanted to try football. He's running tight end in practice. I mean, they're kind of scraping the barrel right now. So I am interested to see that. And obviously, a guy like Bear Alexander, they've been active there. They're trying to make that work. I don't think anything is going to come of that. I think that'll be USC. But there's no question. I mean, Brent Venables and these guys, if they want to get to a place where the portal is a luxury and they go get, like I said, like a guy like a Bear Alexander that's a quality talent, a guy they think can help them. But they are very adamant that they don't want to be a program that lives in the portal and really is, using that for 10 or 12 guys a year.
Josh, what's the feel around Dillon Gabriel being back? Obviously, Jackson Arnold, a highly heralded guy, waiting in the wings as well. Jeff Lebby getting that first year under his belt. Where do you kind of look, and what are the storylines when it comes to Gabriel, Lebby, Arnold, that whole room?
I think obviously they're a lot more comfortable with where they are, because if something were to happen to Dillon Gabriel like it did last year against TCU, they have a guy, Jackson Arnold, that while he's young, they obviously believe in his talent. Last year, I mean, we all saw the Texas game. Oklahoma just kind of went into a shell and tried to limit the score from being too bad. So, I think now it's kind of a twofold thing where, yeah, they feel good about Jackson Arnold. at the same time, I mean, you look at Jeff Lebby's offenses, they've always run the quarterback a lot. And they didn't do that much last year because of that very problem. They were afraid if they lost Dillon Gabriel, they just couldn't run their offense functionally. So I think you're going to see a little more action in the run game from Dillon Gabriel. I want to see what they kind of do with Jackson Arnold. Do they put some packages in? Because he is a better runner than Dillon Gabriel is. Do they do some things in that vein to kind of utilize what he can bring and kind of differentiate himself? But, I don't think there's any question. I mean, the offense I wouldn't say it was the problem last year, but it certainly needs to be improved. And I think even Jeff Lebby was very open that last year there were things they learned. I think some clock management was a problem at times, but it'll just be to me, it's about what they can get out of that receiver room. They need some guys to step up. Jalil Farouk is the most experienced guy, very talented, but hasn't really put it all together yet. And Andrell Anthony is a guy that really transferred in from Michigan that they're pretty excited about. Big, long, athletic guy with a lot of speed. They seem to think he could be an impact guy pretty early on.
What do you think about the new schedule with 14 teams, and now it's different because there's not everybody in the conference playing everybody. So there are teams that Oklahoma has played in the past, including Baylor, that's no longer on the schedule. Your thoughts about how because really they had the game with, what was it, Georgia, that was canceled. So their first few games, with all due respect to them, looks like they can jump out to a nice start.
It really, I think that is huge for them. Now, you say that, and then you look at last year, and 3 weeks in, you thought, boy, this Oklahoma team, they're just off and running, and then obviously the wheels just came off. So, yeah, I do think it's important for them, especially defensively. I thought last year there were moments when it looked like they were playing good football, and whether it was fatigue, just, due to having some limited numbers defensively, and I think they have addressed that largely, although, you're talking about a lot of youth having to fill in some of the depth right now. There's better numbers, there's better talent, but I thought for Oklahoma defensively for 5, 6, 7 years now, there seems to be this mental block where they're just waiting for the other shoe to fall, and as soon as a problem emerges, or as soon as a team converts a 3rd and 12 or something, it's just like the whole defense just kind of collapses on itself and starts making mistakes that you haven't seen all day, mental errors, poor tackling, whatever. It manifests itself in a lot of different ways. It's going to be interesting to see if they can build some momentum early on, build a little belief, and Brent Venables can kind of do what we've seen Brent do so many times in rebuilding a defense. But, again, it's so funny because I see these pieces and I think, okay, this can be better. This is a better group. But after last year, there's just like 6 and 7. Like, you can't get it out of your brain. It kind of hangs in the back of every thought you have whenever you start to believe that, hey, maybe this year's different.
Josh McCuistion with us, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports from Soonerscoop.com. Is there somebody that is a sleeper that you feel like maybe is under the radar just based on intel that might be someone that can contribute pretty quickly?
Like I said, I think the Andrell Anthony kid, it's because when I talk to people at Michigan before he, when he transferred in, it was kind of this question of, what went wrong? Why are they in this situation? Why did he leave Michigan? Because for those that don't remember, this is a kid that had like a 7-reception, 180-yard day against Michigan State as a true freshman a couple of years ago when Michigan State had that great 11-2 season. And you thought, well, okay, this kid, he's born for stardom. And it just never really happened beyond that. So you kind of wondered, well, what's going on here? And you talk to people, and it sounded like just drops. He had a problem with drops, and that was an issue. And, he has all this length and speed. But when you talk to people at Oklahoma, they said he's been great. I mean, he's caught everything. It hasn't been a problem. Now, what do you get when it starts to matter and the lights go on and there's 75,000 people screaming? You just don't know. But he's a guy I would definitely keep an eye on, and I think is really, really one of the surprises. I still think nationally people probably don't realize how good Billy Bowman could be for Oklahoma. I think he could be maybe that first sign of the defense really making a turn, because I think Billy Bowman has fringy, All-American type talent if he can put it all together.
Josh, what's the feel surrounding this final year in the Big 12 and getting ready for the SEC? I'd imagine that's going to be kind of a side storyline is how they're doing currently, but also how that's going to help them, moving forward. But I'd imagine a lot of excitement, anticipation. How would you describe it?
There's definitely excitement. Like I said, I think last year has created a little bit of anxiety just because people don't know, like, what is this? Like the Oklahoma teams of the last 5 years, they can play in the SEC. Now they may, lose some games 63-60 because they just can't outscore everybody. But it's just an interesting deal where it feels like Oklahoma really needs this year to go well to kind of continue recruiting momentum. They've got a chance for another really good class following up last year, which was, the best class OU's had in like 15 years when you look at the rankings. So Brent Venables came out, and in spite of a really shaky year on the field, they had a great recruiting class. Now, if you can double that up, start to get better up front, where I thought that was one of the strengths of the class, was the offensive line and defensive line. There's some real NFL-type talent in there. If you can do that for a second straight year, then you start being ready to play in the SEC. Because I think we all know on the perimeter, OU has the talent to play with just about anybody year in and year out. It's just, can they match up front with the big boys in the SEC?
Josh, we'll have you on again, hopefully sometime during the summer and obviously in the fall with fall workouts in August. Craig, anything else for Josh? Thanks for your time. We appreciate you. We've known you for a long, long time. Thanks for the knowledge and insight.
Hey, anytime, guys. Always enjoy
Josh McCuistion, Soonerscoop.com with us. Somebody asked in the chat room about the running back position.